Welcome back to Shabby Shack Studio. I'm sharing the March plan with me for all my bullet journal fans today. We'll be working with lots and lots of different products. We'll be working with this beautiful black cardstock you see before you and my favorite white gel pen. We'll be working with watercolors, digital, silk paper, Copic markers, a whole realm of beautiful products. All my favorites that I use in my journal every single month. As you can see, we hole punch our own and actually add them to a vintage journal that we've created together. So let's get to it. So we're kicking off the month with our page keeper. As per usual, as you can see, this has already been punched and added to my journal. It has the beautiful little sunrise theme, a little bit stylized and abstract, which I love, and that actually carries on throughout the entire theme this month. Okay, so moving on to our watercolor, which is our cover page. I actually created an entire separate video for this because I actually recorded it in real time, and when I started editing I realized it was actually quite about 20 minutes long. So, and it has lots of detail, everything from this initial sketch through to mixing colors, talking about products, the whole kit and caboodle. So if this is something you're interested in, I will link it for you below and you can go on and paint that in real time with me. You can of course get as abstract or as perfectionist as you like, so it's really perfect for everyone from the beginner to the expert who is wanting to fill out their sketchbook and have a little bit of practice. I did create it really early in the morning, so I'm going to apologize in advance when stray hairs and the top of my head peeps in and out. I edited it out so much. This entire month has been so edited, so you'll see some really beautiful, I'm so happy with this new program I'm using. The transitions are just so gentle and they dissolve from one into the other, so it does view nicely, but it did also allow me a lot of creative license to edit out my head as much as possible. So it's all a learning curve. I'm getting better, I promise. So you will notice that the candle burning in one of my favorite mugs in the top left hand corner. Early mornings, big shirts, messy hair, a book and tea. Totally sets the scene for this month. I did begin actually filming early in the morning, so you can see the light change as I am doing so. And I definitely was in my pajama, my favorite linen pajama shirt. My hair is definitely messy. Working on my favorite watercolor book here from Mont. I will link that for you below, and with my morning coffee. So it really was, this video was so much fun actually to create. I was just feeling it. I was in my happy place. I wasn't worrying about where the video was, which is of course created issues when it came to editing, but it did mean that it felt quite natural and fun. The early morning shadows, despite my handy ring light, are still there, but as I said, they kind of go as the sun actually rises, and it kind of sets the scene for this very casual, very relaxed, very zen experience. So you can see my hair even popping in there, my messy morning hair. But hopefully that makes you realize that present not perfect is what we're always after. Perfectly imperfect when we're painting and when we're creating, whether it's with pen or with watercolor. Creating is supposed to be coming from our heart. It's not supposed to be making it perfect. It's not supposed to be making us feel anxious. It's actually supposed to be doing the opposite. It's supposed to be our happy place. It's supposed to be making us feel relaxed and taking away the stress. So I really do recommend, if you can't sleep and you're an insomniac like me, instead of laying in bed thinking about and worrying, let's be honest, worrying about all the things, get up and be creative. Get up and do something that takes you to your happy place and makes your heart happy. And you know, lighting a candle and sitting down with you and with my watercolors was definitely did it for me. Okay, so going back to this, talk about supplies. I'm working with my favorite Mont Marte watercolor book, as you can see, and I'm also working with my brand new Royal Talons Van Gogh Professional Series paints. You can see me there when I'm painting, fixing a little error I had made. just thinking that my sun had actually dried a little bit better than it had, and just giving it a little bit of a dab to make sure that they're not going to bleed together. I do want the sun reflecting on the water, not the water reflecting on the sun. So I don't worry about that. I do actually go back, and when everything is dried up there, and I actually do add some depth and some wet on dry to my sunset, and even some depth to my waves. So never feel that you need to have had professional lessons, you need to have spent a fortune on supplies. It's not for you because you haven't got, you know, a degree or crazy amounts of experience, or even that you feel that you are not talented enough. We all create differently, and it's beautiful in our own way. So please embrace your creative nature and what makes you happy. And don't try to be so perfect, just try to be present and do what you feel makes you feel happy. And there will be someone in your family or a friend that will just love a gift of your time, whether it's you're gifting it as a gift card, or if you're framing it and giving it to them to hang on their wall. There will be somebody who actually admires your work. So be brave and be you. And as you can see, I've come back and I've added that wave in now, and it's not bleeding into my sun, haha. And blending that out, so you can see that this process was really a relaxed experience. I'm playing with the blues and greens. I'm actually not using a lot of colors here. I'm using my cerulean blue, I'm using a cobalt blue, and I'm using just a very gentle green. I'll look that one up for you in just one second. And I'm just mixing those. The Viridian, it was Viridian green. And I'm just using them in different strengths and with lots and lots of water. And just playing with the shades and letting them bleed and blend and bloom and do what watercolors do. Okay, and for the sun, for that little sunset, I actually only used a little bit of the quinacridone rose and a little bit of the yellow ochre. So in my crazy amounts of editing, I did have to edit out the palette on the right hand side because my head was peeping through far too much. And quite distracting. But you will see that as the slides transition from one to the other, you'll see that there, and it's mixed there. I've just added those colors in varying strengths, lots and lots of water, so that they're nice and translucent. And don't be afraid, you will see me actually come back and add in quite some strength of color here and there, and you may think, oh my gosh, that's too much, but you will see soon enough that it actually blends and blooms out really nicely. So there you go, I've picked up some of that lovely peach that I've mixed with those just two very simple colors, and I'm just putting a little bit of that reflection into the water as the waves are still wet, but not as wet as they were. They dried that little bit. I didn't want it to bloom too much, so that it mixed in with the blue and the green and became a different color. I wanted it to be a color in its own right. So I just let them dry a little bit, and then I came back in and added some of that peach in just to show that beautiful sunset reflection in the water, which is exactly how it looks when we're out there wandering around in the evenings and watching that sun go down, whether you are on the beach where I'm lucky enough to live, and to view it in the waves, or if you're watching it go down over the mountains or the hills or a beautiful meadow. Wherever you're viewing it, the colors are always so magic, and you honestly do think, if I painted that, people wouldn't believe it was real. So this is one of those exercises that are just such a joy to create. You will notice that I have been careful to leave a little bit of white paper free between to keep those colors separate. It also creates a nice definition between the waves. You can see that nothing is really planned. I'm really feeling it as I go. The only real sketch that I created was just my positioning of my actual sun and just the beginning of the wave. That's it, and it was just for placement on my page. So this is actually an A4 book, and I've just turned it on its side so it's landscape. So I'm really working on kind of an A5 portrait piece, if that gives you an idea, if you're wanting to do the same. You can of course do it on a much larger scale. I could just totally see this with a beautiful white mat hung on the wall. It would just look so beautiful in so many settings. So as I said, don't be afraid to be brave and and enjoy your work. It doesn't have to be left in a book somewhere. It could definitely be hung on the wall or gifted to a friend. Because this is my cover page, I do quite often add an affirmation, and somewhere between heaven and earth, the words to me were just perfect. I think that without a doubt you'll all agree that sunrise and sunset, the magic of that truly is a gift from heaven. So here I am now. I'm just actually creating a little bit of a Dutch door. Nothing that's too perfect. I do love to create my actual cover page and then add the Dutch door where I feel it fits. So I like the idea of shaping it around the waves. So this is just with a sharp craft knife. You could use a pair of scissors if you feel that is more comfortable for you. And then I'm just following the lines very, very gently. And this is just a cheap cutting mat I picked up long ago. Okay, and that is our final cover page, and as you can see, the layering of the wet on dry and the colors really do make it pop. Okay, then I've literally just flipped this Dutch door over to begin the first part of my month at a glance. So I have Monday and Tuesday on this page, and then it goes on to the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I include Saturday and Sunday together on the second page. I've edited this one. This one's a little bit boring to watch otherwise, so it didn't make much difference if my hair was peeking in, and I needed to edit that out because, you know, doing the lines is a little bit dull anyway. So I did this one a little bit differently. Instead of adding March at the top, I started creating my calendar and I left the gap at the bottom. Again, I finished February coming into this month, so everything just flows nicely from one month to the other. And I finished this on the 27th, so of course the last few days of March will actually feature in the April month at a glance. So everything runs together nicely from one to the other. I did find that keeping everything so separate in previous years, I just felt strange to have the months so separated when in fact they really do flow from one to the other so nicely. So for me, I really much prefer this style. If you prefer it the other way, keep it separate and just add in an extra row to make sure that you fit that all in that one month at a glance, so that you keep them separate if that's what you prefer. I then simply did my sun and my waves at the bottom in a pencil, and then just I'm going over and inking them now. This is in a 0.02 in my favorite Staedtler pigment liners. And then lastly, I'm just going to Copic those in as well. So I just erase any of the lines. This is on the digital silk paper. So the Monday, Tuesday is on the back of the watercolor paper. The Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you can see the whites are slightly different. That is actually on my favorite digital silk paper, which was beautiful with Copic marker. As you can see, I can layer the colors on so beautifully, and it's quite thick, so I don't tend to get too much ghosting unless I get too heavy-handed with the marker, and even then it's very gentle. So these are my favorite Copic markers, my alcohol-based pigment liners, and they're lovely for just building color and adding shading, and they're just a lovely way to add color to my journal each month. You'll notice that all the pencil lines have been erased. On this paper, I use my Kneadable eraser. It's just a game changer. It doesn't damage the paper, it doesn't remove the sheen. I linked that one for you below because not all brands are created equal. Some are just awful. So my favorite Faber-Castell one, I will link it for you below. They're super cheap and totally worth the money. Moving on next to my affirmation and mood tracker pages. I always do them on these beautiful black card with my favorite white liner. This is where I put my goals, my wins, big events that I have on for the month. My husband's birthday is this month, so I'm looking forward to planning a special day with him and with our friends and family. So do make sure that you customize this to suit you. So if there's something in particular that you want to keep track of, then put that in there. It completely personalize it to suit your needs. I did do a really lovely affirmation, paint the sky, make it yours. I just felt, as soon as I saw this, I just thought, you know what, that is absolutely has to be in. And it really is something that I enjoy every day, is going for a bike ride or a walk with my husband and my daughter, and with our beautiful blind rescue puppy Winnie, and enjoying the sunset together over the waves. So I certainly admire that beautiful sunset every day. So this one was really quite fun to do for my journal this month, and it really did resonate with me. So that was my affirmation page. As you can see, it's really quite simple. My favorite white marker, I will actually link that one for you below as well. It's a pilot one, and it just flows beautifully, and I use it constantly, so it stands up to lots of use. And this was my mood tracker. The video was just, my head was in all of it, so I just did a slow pan of the final page, so I hope you'll forgive me this month. And then we've moved on to my weekly planner. So this is my weekly spread, again, putting in the months, the days of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. I've divided it into 3 again, because I did find that, I did this last month and I found that 3 days, not 4, works better for me. Please do what works best for you. So if you want more days, or even if you want to have 1 day to a page, do what works best for you. It just depends on how much information you put in there, if you want to have a separate to-do list, etc. But I find that this actually gives me much more space to write in all the things. And running a business and a household, I desperately needed that extra space. So I always keep this quite simple, and again, having my sunrise at the bottom and my waves, the theme was really quite sweet. It was easy to replicate for however many pages I needed to do it. Just using my favorite pigment liners on my favorite digital silk paper means that I can add that Copic at the bottom, and you can see that I'm quite careful with this paper. It takes a little bit longer to dry, so when I'm using my pigment liners, I do have to just take a little bit more care to lift the ruler and not drag it so it doesn't smudge. Lastly, I pick one of the colours that I've used to colour my motif below, and I simply add the date at the top and outline it gently with a pigment liner. It looks quite effective and is very simple when you're actually doing all the days of the week. It's a very quick, easy step. Moving on to my quotes page, always have a quotes page. Here I am collecting memories. Again, I felt those words really resonated with me. I used a really simple calligraphy as usual, outlined that in pencil. You can still see the pencil there. I used my pigment liners to go over that. I use a 0.03 for that one. And then I always watercolor. This is again on one of my favorite Mont A5 notepads. This one has a really beautiful texture, and you can't see it in this image. You might see it in a moment when we transition on. Depends on the light. It has like this really gentle textural stripe through the background, and I just adore it. My quotes page is always one of my favorites. I do always try to add a watercolor to this page. Again, this was really an intuitive piece. I didn't really use any guidelines or anything like that. Had some real fun with the color, and I'm really happy with how it came together. Here I am collecting memories speaks absolutely of my theme for this year, not to mention my beautiful sunsets. And I will add more quotes as I come across them throughout the month. As you can see, I did decide to go back and colour in the word quotes just so it's a little bit more punchy and stands out from the other quotes that will be added to the page. And then I went back and decided it needed a little something else, and I added in the rays of the sun. Last but not least, I had to share my colour palette with you today. I actually am painting this one live with you, so do pick up your brushes and your favourite watercolour paper. You can see the texture on this pad in this image. I just love this paper so much. It does have a nice perforation at the top too, which means I can tear it out really easily without actually damaging or tearing into my watercolor, and I can add that to my journal. So that is a nice little bonus for me. So do consider that if you are creating a vintage journal just like I am, and then that gives you the option of using as many different kinds of paper as you please, because you're just going to trim it and customize it to suit your needs and the page that you want, the design you want for each individual one. So for me, I always do my affirmations and my mood tracker in that beautiful black card. I use a couple of different kinds of watercolor paper that I love, and then I use my digital silk paper, and creating my journal like this is just absolutely perfect for me. I do encourage you, however, if you prefer to have a standard bullet journal with the dot grid, do what suits you. You don't need to follow anybody else except what makes your heart happy, what you find most helpful, and just is so joyous for you to create. So as you can see, I've kept with my color palette, I've kept with those gorgeous corals, the pinks. I will be adding lemon to this, the stunning aqua greens, sky blues, etc. And again, this is such an intuitive process. Again, you'll see there are no sketch lines. I very rarely, if not never, add any pencil lines to this. I let it become what it will. Sometimes I even do 4 squares instead of 3. Quite often I'll add a banner with the words color palette on it. I don't in this one. This one I decided to do it on the side, and I really think that is fun. I did decide at the end to add some pigment liner and a picture at the base, so you'll see that as this progresses. I have shown you this in all but real time. I've sped it up just a little bit because that way you don't see my kind of thinking process where the brush is hovering while I'm deciding what I'm thinking, and you actually just see more of me actually just creating. So you can see I've gone back and added some wet on dry. I've added some wet into wet, the green being still wet there, just to add a little bit more depth and dimension to the colors. You can see the cobalt blue there, it's having bled beautifully and bloomed beautifully. Adding some of the coral pink back because I felt like the pink here is washed out a little bit. I do take care to leave the lines and the shapes to be irregular. I don't want them to be perfect. If you are the opposite and you want to tape off squares, by all means. I haven't even tried to do that. Maybe it's something I need to do. Let me know what you think below. Would you like to see the lines taped off with some washi tape and really distinct squares? Tell me what you think. But I generally do this, as you can see, really intuitively. I leave a little bit of white space here and there, a little pocket of sheen or light poking through. I mix my colors as I go, so you can see me here adding the rose, and then I'll add a little bit of ochre to that to make it, if I want it to be peach. Here I'm using your Gemboge yellow on this one, which is quite orangey yellow. I didn't want it to be kind of neon, so some of the yellows can be like the lemon yellow can be almost like a neon yellow. I didn't want that look. So as you can see, as this is dried, you can see the pink there has quite a strong definition. I'll go back and play with that with just a little bit of water and smooth that out. It just depends 100% how it's blooming and bleeding, how the color and the pigment mixes. So sometimes I'll go back and have a play. Sometimes I like the lines the way they look, the perfectness of them, if you please. I hope you've enjoyed painting this beautiful little colour palette with me as the final page for our March Bujo. I really loved having you here. A little reminder, please hit subscribe and support me and the channel if you like what you see and would like to see more of it. Then you'll get notified as soon as a video is uploaded and you'll get first peek. Okay, lastly, before I say goodbye, just a little mention that I do add colour palette in my standard script on the side, and then erase all those lines out neatly with my favourite Kneadable eraser, which works beautifully on this textured paper, as well as the digital silk colour. Wishing you a wonderful day, friends, and hope to see you soon.